The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hey guys, we got a whole four of you. It's nice you guys show up. Can one of you guys just let's do a sound check and make sure you can see my screen. If you can tap and chat something, some message, tell me what the situation is, and then I'll get going. Anyone see my screen? Okay, cool. All right. Let's see. Yep, still four people, so not a whole lot. I know Friday's tough. So what I'm going to do today is do the typical, which is go over Bitcoin, Ether where we're at. My take. It shouldn't be too different from my nightly report, except I think we had some nice action today in Bitcoin, so good spot to get us highlighted for the weekend. And then what I want to do is, before I talk about requests, I've seen a little bit of a renewed um, interest in scalping, and so I'm going to talk a little bit about my techniques. I've been playing it pretty darn well. I mean, I think if you watched this morning, I caught the bottom of this little boom fest we had here, and I'll talk about how I approached that. There's never any sure thing, and I'm not going to call myself a great scalper, but I can tell you that I've been growing over the years that I've been trading in terms of doing it more typically a swing trader. And this has not been a swing traders market right now, so I've been more interested in scalping myself. So we'll talk about that techniques. If you're new at anything in trading, you should start small and put most of your money in what you're successful at and not in what you're not. So and when I say successful, I mean long term. So yeah, and then what I'll do is cover the requests, which are not too heavy today. This is my day trading screen. So we'll talk about that when we talk about scalping. In terms of talking about the market, let's look at Bitcoin real quick. Zooming out, there's lots of different ways to shake this correction right now. It's extremely complex, and I found it much easier to follow this chart, which is I'm going to stick some arrows on here if I can find my arrow tool. So it is very much possible that we have a WXY bottom here, and if you remember my previous counts, it's still possible. Zacks, I think, mainly counted it that way, at least giving it a chance as a bottom, and it's certainly possible. The problem is it's not really normal that you would see a low here and then see three waves into it, which really is WXI if you get it. WXY is triple three, so three up into this what's called A here, but it'd be X in the WXY, and then three waves, which is an ABC in the Y wave. So it's still possible. I would just rather see a deeper Y wave. When I look at all the WXYs that Bitcoin has gone through over the years, they're really, really flushed down on this end. So I'm taking a bit of an intuitive, experience-based view that this is not a WXY bottom, but in Elliott Wave, we're also very objective, so I have to give it a chance. So we can keep that in mind. And then I talked about this last week, but I'm expecting this B wave. But if we finish this five waves in the sea of B, which is really potentially starting the four to five move into this 9,000 region, unless this lower support gets taken out, which is currently, zooming but in and out. It's this 7185 bottom of this box where I have to doubt this view. If that happens, then if that's taken out, then this is sort of off, or something changes. But right now, I think we may have started the this fifth wave. Another potential here is that this red wave also pans out, which, let me get some stuff out of the way, and if it does, it's going to be kind of a very complex. Let's see, sometimes these things just are hidden. It's going to be very complex. So this is five waves today. So when you have five waves, you definitely expect at least continued correction, not this to be the top. And so it would be most likely that if we get this more complex correction, that we see another three wave down in a deep B, but it'll kind of look like a wave two down too. So and then we'll see a premature top in this B over here. So let's map that out. So these are the very normal Elliott wave structures. Again, five waves suggest that you have more to go. Question is what? And we know that A waves can be 5 waves. It's just rare in equities, but we've seen a lot of it in cryptos. So it's possible that we got possible that we get an ABC like that, and then we top. But it's just if we get over this 8,300, I just personally see a really important point here. It's going to create a lot of FOMO. We have a very shallow, this kind of shallow move, and then this really stark flush out here, which was pretty fast last night. And so I would doubt that we get a C wave top if we get over this 8,300, but it's still potential. So, but high B waves are bullish, not bearish. That just means that you have to deal with the C wave after. So we can be expecting that if we get that high B wave, that most likely we'll be heading to that 9,000 region. So that's my expectation right now. I don't see that. Another potential in all of this is that after this, that instead of really pushing through, is that we get a deeper B wave and a much higher C wave. I think that ARK prefers something like that here. I think it's potential. I can't argue with it in terms of viability, but it's just not my preference in terms of the way Bitcoin moves. So I'm always kind of leaning in terms of the structures I typically see in Bitcoin. But again, we're objective, and that's can be a mistake. So, but I manage that simply by looking at where the resistance and support zones are for each count that invalidate them. So you have to kind of take all these with a grain of salt. I wouldn't. If you're not very positioned right now long, I wouldn't necessarily worry about it, because if you, in the long-term perspective, we break 15,000 impulsively. There are ways of breaking 15,000 not impulsively, but if we break it impulsively and then we are corrective down and hold the level of support that I'll map out when we get there, and we break out again over 15,000, most likely we're on our way to 65,000, not 250,000. So if you just really take perspective, if you're under positioned now, then you can get positioned again in the higher correction, which will probably come back to around this region. So you really aren't missing a lot if you're just a long-term player. If you are, there's always a chance. We've seen some coins just kind of utterly break out and never come back. But I'd be surprised. So I may eat my words later, but I'm just not seeing it right now. So you don't have to play every move. You can wait for that, sort of set up for the larger breakout. Right now, all we have is this little inkling of a impulse forming, and right now my expectation is it doesn't get very far before we start to correct down in. Let's zoom out. The B wave top brings us back down to the C. So there's a really very little practical difference right now, the way I have it, between the white count and the red count. It really is a bearish count. Now there's a chance that this extends in this high B, because B can go up to 15,000 comfortably and really still be a B wave. So it's potential this extends. Now, if we look at the market in terms of what Ether's doing, I've been bearish on it. It's got a valid bearish setup still. It's just pushing the limit of it, not price wise, but time wise. We would expect this to go, but you can ending diagonal out in time like this and see this red count still go. We can see it tease along the channel, even get a little lower, and then still push up in this 3. So I'm really looking for 515 right here for Ether to break up. And if you look at this structure, we still see a lot of that in a lot of coins. Like I'll talk about Ripple long term as one of the requests, but it's got one of those. NEO has one of these. And these are most likely wave 4 consolidations before that final drop. So in terms of, I can't, I may eat my words, I have to always talk probability. It's just when you see most of the market doing this kind of sideways action, and really only Bitcoin doing something particularly strong, BitShares, OX, which is ZRX symbol, DGB is strong. You really only see a few that are strong. It's XLM as well, Stellar. When you only see a few of those that are really strong, to me, it's just reason to be doubtful. But again, if you're playing long term, do you have to worry about missing a couple thousand versus the 60,000 plus that we have to play with after we break out, or 50,000 plus? So just to get perspective, you have to know yourself as a trader. Are you a long term or short term or scalper or whatever? You really want to stay in your skill set. unless you want to learn something new. And then if you learn something new, you want to play small. So it's very best. Just to really honest, like I was killing it in Forex earlier this year. I just started, and I'm not anymore. I'm actually losing money in Forex right now. I've been starting to gain it back again lately, but that's because I'm learning, and my count is about 1% of my average count in other assets. And I just know from experience that when you try something new, you should go small, small, small. And my scalping account in Bitcoin is about maybe 10% of my overall holdings. So it's I don't play super heavy, and I just play it with leverage. When I know a trade, I leverage up, and when I'm not unsure about a trade, I don't leverage up. So that's kind of just the way it works for me. And I wasn't, when I was in Chicago, I was talking to Charlie, he was there, and I was like, I'm not doing that great, like in scalping, like I'm not totally convinced of what I'm doing. And then today, over the last couple of days, I made a lot of money. So it's just one of those things that comes and goes. And now I want to hang on to it by dropping that into my long-term counts. Like I'm probably going to buy some more Steam, buy some more, Steam is one of my favorites. I might buy more EOS. We'll see. I don't have much ADA personally, and I'll probably buy some of that. So those are that's kind of the way I approach it. If I can get some money short term, awesome. Then I'll just have it. But one of the other reasons I approach having a small term count is just a hedge when the crap is hitting the fan. When things are just really starting to slide, I can hedge most of my portfolio with leverage. And then if I get taken out of that, fine, awesome, because the rest of my holdings are doing great. So anyway, that's kind of where I'm at with the market. I still lean bearish overall. We're not going to get too far before we correct. A break of 9,000 will bring on 12,000 in Bitcoin. A break of 12,000 will bring on 15,000 is kind of the way to look. But to get into the little nuances of how those breakouts will go, I'll just do micro counts. So that's the way I'm seeing it. And I think, once maybe even the weekend we start to see 9,000, and if we do, I'll be calling out for caution because we'll have to see what happens there. If we get a very corrective move down, then I would expect we see 12,000 potentially at least. So let's just see how it goes. It's all I can really offer at this stage right now because this is one of the messiest corrections I've ever tracked in my Elliott Wave life. So it's just a challenge. Now let's talk about scalping real quick. If you guys are tracking okay, and I'm speaking a little fast. 12 minutes in, I have plenty of time. Why don't I stop with questions? If there's any questions about these little nuances about Bitcoin, Ether, perspective on the whole market, why don't we take a little bit of break to answer questions? So just let me know if you want to throw some in, and I'll do my best. I don't see any. So if you feel like you've got a question burning, just throw it in there. I'll start talking a little slow, just because I've got so much time for us. So scalping, I'm gonna just talk about technique, and what I'll say is with scalping, I rely a little bit less on Elliott Wave than you think. Not because it's invalid, but because you just simply see more garbage on a short-term chart. You see truncations within the Elliott Wave count. You see a lot of whiplash. You're dealing with more corrective waves on a micro. Sometimes you really don't know where the impulse is until you see it. So it's tough. So I'm going to talk about the scalping process this morning, and I'm speaking out of having a big win today. If you were watching me, so lucky me. I don't always get that level of like right on the money. So let's look at this wave, and I'm going to backtrack all of my thought process because I caught sort of almost every move here. I mean, I was long into this. I was short into this. I built my short up larger here, and I took it off here. I literally added a little here overnight, and then I took it off here. I mean, it was nuts. So I'm literally, and this is not me tooting my horn. The mental process is there for me. Sometimes intuition fails me, but I literally made a trade scale wise at every single point here, which is completely insanity for me. I see an answer there from Niraj, and let me just finish this thought pattern, and then I'll get to those questions real quick. I'm going to head back to this. So let's look at this pattern, and we can talk about the signs for why. So one, I had a clear fib here, so I expected a top here. What I didn't expect here was the three wave move that we got, which is really ABC into a B wave top, and then the rest is the C wave so far. And so that surprised me a little bit. However, you look at the nice negative divergence here, which is really a tip off. And I'm going down the 15-minute chart, 5-minute chart works too. So right, number one, I had a fib level here. Number two, I saw a divergence. So I believe I started by taking profit here, but I started to slowly put in a short trade. And when I say small, I never go from being long to profit to full short, like right in one fell swing. I really measure out. I took my long leverage off. I put a little bit of short leverage on, and really I built that short trade here. If you look at this, we have 5 down. We have a 3-wave move, and look how weak that price action is here. So let's, it's just very visual sometimes for me, is you can see just how weak that price action is. We talk about bear flags and bull flags. I mean, if you have a stronger move down and the next one's weak, I talked about that during the Verge announcement, you better think short, and the opposite if it's bullish. And then there's always, I was looking at, the question was whether this was going to go into an impulsive move. A impulsive move would require an extension, a direct extension in a third wave much farther with that, and I mentioned that on the board. And instead this ended up short, and we ended up with technical divergence. Look how strong the MACD reversed on us as we were pulling into this. Now that's never, when you start to see that, that's never the original move. That's never the rally kicking off. It's actually the fourth wave when you see divergence of the scale. So we got a new low here. So I started to short again last night, knowing that it's never the first wave up in MACD that's the thing. But then you get the divergence here, and that you're going to turn. And not only did we turned hard. RSI gave us divergence, not the hidden divergence I've been talking about recently, but just standard divergence here as well. I'm using RSX, but that's the same thing as RSI, just smoothed out. And then we also started to see DMI turn, which DMI is still one of my favorite indicators, and the bars. I gave the code previously, and I'm happy to repost, but the bar color is actually shaped by the DMI indicator. I coded it that way. So yeah, that's kind of my scalping process, and the big trade was really here because of how strong the divergence is, and the big trade was here. I was positioning much smaller down in here because, one, I'm catching a knife with little to go on other than a fib, and then I'm just taking a little shot at a very small bear flag which I don't know whether this was going to extend. And sure enough, MACD headed over 0. And then just pulled back a little bit, and then that indicated this morning to me that we were in a strong move. And so my big trades again were at this circle and this circle, not this circle and this circle, because it's very difficult to call sort of a naked top. When I say naked top, there's just air above it, and you never know how far it's going to go. And then you get the first setup, and then you can kind of push that setup. So hopefully when I talk about scalping, it's important to understand that let me just turn this off. Hopefully it's important to understand positioning size as well. I'm kind of harping on that. I've done a lot more harping on that in the past. I'm going to harp on it again. I think a little more in the future, because some people are getting chopped up probably by positioning. I don't know. There's over trading and positioning will both cause you to get chopped up. And I naturally seed the early signal and then build on it as a trade builds. And when you get a downswing and then a flag, that's an opportunity to build on the trade that you started, or enter one if you don't have one. And then the same thing here, when you start to see divergence, I actually seeded this one pretty strong simply because that divergence was so darn strong. But normally I would actually add just a little bit here. Now my trade's gonna be even bigger if this ends up corrective down into this zone here. If that happens, then I'm gonna build this trade even bigger than I have now. I took some profit up here. Just noticing that it's losing velocity a little bit. It's not that I'm necessarily concerned about it, but I would expect some level of pullback here. If that pullback's very soft and shallow, wow, we got a really bullish situation. We're definitely going to hit 9,000. So let's just see how it goes. But right now, I don't think there's any reason to short until this stretches out. If this gets weak and you get this kind of action here, it gets really long. And really refuses to break resistance, then I'll be at least tentatively feeding the short cautiously, because we might get that blue B wave. But we really should have a correction and then another C wave before that happens. So up into this region here. So like I showed in red earlier, boom, something like that, and land up in here. and a high B. So let's just see. Okay, so questions. Let's see. For a quick short-term trade, 1 to 3 weeks, which coins at the moment look to be able to offer the highest percentage return in the immediate short term? So the problem is I'm not very bullish. That's the issue, and I may again, I may end up eating my words. However, the coins that I'm personally trading short term are ZRX because it's minding its own bullish business uniquely. BTS, I would if we get a corrective pullback from this region. And then XLM, I'm going to exit when it gets to 39, all of my position personally, and I'm going to take off 30% of the portfolio. Personally, because I do have a bill to pay, unfortunately, some taxes, but I'm going to take it off because I'll have some profit and then just see, and I may add back if we get a bullish correction. So, and then DGB potentially is also leading the bullish herd. So I'm going to talk about that chart long term, but we have to see in ZRX probably has a couple waves to go. XLM after the next wave, we need to see if it gets a bullish correction. Oh, and the other one is BNB. It looks very bullish to me and may be a good place to enter now. I'll bring up that chart when we do requests just to show that chart because no one requested it, but I'm very bullish on that chart as a potential. But it doesn't have great skew yet. It's just one of those ones. It's more like it's immediately bullish, and long term, it's not that impressive. So that's just what we have right now as a market. We have to take at least for me, my short term trading is going into the coins that are potential. It doesn't mean the skew is great. It just means that they're profitable potential trades. While the ones with the big skew, I think potentially have more down to go. So I hope that makes sense. Happy to answer that question more on the board or come back to it later in the hour. Or if you really don't understand what I'm saying, go ahead and please build on that question. Niraj, hopefully I'm pronouncing your name right. Okay, so you made a comment. This is from Robert. You made a comment yesterday that you wish you would have never started a long-term portfolio. Can you expand on that, please? I just don't think. Well, I shouldn't say that. I wish I personally did not focus on long-term as much as I have, or lighten the load. So I should eat my words a little bit. But I'm going to go back in history. When we started this service, it was a really strong request from a lot of people that we had a long-term portfolio. I had some concerns at it because I know how volatile cryptos are. I've been doing this for about 6 years, and I was afraid that we would have the situation I think we have now, which is people getting caught in trades that they never really stomached, they never saw as possible. Even though I said in January, and if you look back at my trade or expo talk in February, and some of my articles, long-term support for Bitcoin was always at 3,000. There's not really any change. We just had a lot of fake rallies that I personally got caught up in as well. And so it's not like I haven't said where long-term support is on most of these coins, but I still think people had a lot more faith in those fake rallies that we had. And I say fake just because they were impulses that failed or looked like impulses and then proved not to be. That's just the way trading is. And so, and then of course I added to the long-term portfolios during some of that. And because the long-term, I didn't want to thrash people. So I didn't stop out of everything and take the portfolio way down again. That may have not been the smartest move. And so bottom line is I'm going to approach it very differently in the next rally. I'm going to take it down to like 10%. I'm personally not going to worry about getting it, more exposed like I did. I when we rallied in September, I had it very underexposed because I care about people following it. I felt bad about being underexposed, and now I feel bad about being overexposed. So it's just a difficult thing for to manage in cryptos. And I think because we talk about, if one rally fails, it can drop another 50% and still be long-term bullish. I think what my approach is now is simply to keep a ton of cash in it almost at all times and really only position it when the sentiment is super bearish. And then if people want to get more into the coins that I have there and they want to have builder positions, uh, that's awesome. I just feel guilty when I sit there with a long-term portfolio that's fully exposed, which I think is going to be fine long-term, but is not really the best use of cash. And personally, I have much less exposure on the long-term, and I still have more than I want right now. I'm doing well with my short-term trading and feel good about it. But that again, the issue with that is that I'm just going to end up paying taxes, and now that I don't have a corporate job, I got to pay quarterly taxes. So, hence my bill and why I've got to sell Stellar to pay a bill. So I'm sorry to run around the question, but I do think that I just don't want to be responsible for people. I really care about how people do, not just I want the service to survive, but because I just really care and I want people to be successful. And I really feel nasty when. I really feel nasty when people potentially could be caught in trades long term and not feel comfortable with it. I mean, the same thing with miners right now. I don't. I wish I personally had lower exposure from miners. That says I haven't. That being said, I haven't lost a whole lot in miners. I've lost a lot in cryptos from the top. Now, my long term return in cryptos is immense, and actually turned over a lot of financial issues I had from some bad business deals that I had in the past. So I really don't feel that bad. So again, I'm talkative, but that's just I want to share my heart on all of this. So hope that's respected. Gosh, man, too many phone calls today. All right, so any more questions, and then I'll go to requests, and then we'll come back to the BNB chart because I want to illustrate that for Neeraj and other people that might be interested. All right, let's go to requests. So I'm not gonna fly them through in particular order. Hopefully I've got all the requests that I saw here. If any ones I missed, just please pipe in. One request was for the Litecoin long term. Now Litecoin is when we track a wave 4 correction, we look for it to ideally hold. Let's see. Make sure I got this fib in the right spot. That's not the fib I want, sorry. We ideally want the correction itself to retrace no more than 50% of the third wave preceding, and then ideally holds at 382, which on this is the 618. So you can see right here, we're nicely in the we're nicely above the box. And when I look at the structure, we don't have a firm rally. This is like Bitcoin that could have a WXY bottom, but I much prefer that it gets a very clean wave 4. It could even be topped in that wave 4 now and sees a fifth wave. And ideal is 58, 56. And then when we see that, we most likely, when I'm using this fib tool, see at least progression to the 1, 2, 3, sometimes a tad bit short. And right now that's at around the 1200 region. And then there's a potential that it goes up to the 1382 on this tool. And that's a 2415, so 2,415, and that's an extension. So I can't really call Litecoin an extended fifth asset like Bitcoin, but it's potential that it definitely gets up there. And then there's a potential this is only top of a third. If I subdivide this, it's just messy down here, so it's hard to tell whether we need another fourth and fifth. But my primary count is that this is the major top, and then we're in a wave 2 after that, which is right back to around this region, and it could even hold at 149, the 382. And then, this gets crazy, if Litecoin survives its wave 2, which sometimes is the case, we have over 6 million eventually for wave 3. By no means would I expect that in 2022. You would expect a wave 1 up to 2805, so we'd be back to this topping region. You would hit some resistance right near that top region before we get a 2 down to about 140. So we're going to be in long term in Litecoin after this rally up. We're going to be kind of in a range trade for maybe even a few years, potentially. We'll have to see how that goes. We'll have to see how deep it goes in 2, because that guides how much one up. If 2 is shallow, you might see a 1 up that's above that region, above the breakout region. So we're gonna have to see what happens with all of this. But I'll be not in Litecoin after this rate wave up here until I know more. And that's not true of all coins. Some coins are in thirds or look to be in thirds. So that's something important to differentiate. So let me save this and then get rid of it. They asked for Ripple. Ripple is it's very much a similar count. Same fibs I'm looking at. We're still above the 618 or 382 retrace of 3, and then and then we should see a rally to $15 to $40. It can be a little shy, and that would be the fifth wave. It looks like we have a fourth going on right now in progress, so we'd expect the last wave of this WXY to be in play. If there's a stronger rally or a diagonal or something formed, like it might be an ether, then we can look for this to start, because it certainly could be complete enough at this point in time. But again, it's one of those situations where we've seen a lot of drag down, but the long term remains intact, especially when you have a big blue box underneath price. It's not even touching it. It's remaining bullish. And when we start to go through 12 cents, I'm concerned, and my preference has always been 27 cents is hit, because that's a perfect 382 retrace of this third wave that came off this whole 2017 timeframe. So good stuff. Let's see. Next, let me get rid of the Bitcoin Ether just for right now. Someone asked about Ether. Let me refresh this. Ether, Bitcoin, and if you look on this chart, we've just about broken the A wave. So I would expect a C wave to complete, and in this situation, I would assume, and this might happen with the breakouts this weekend for Bitcoin, I would expect C now to go to 0.045. So I highlighted that before we start to rally. So nothing bearish about this chart, except for the immediate. We would expect now that A is close to breaking, that we would see it broken. It's possible that it doesn't break A and then we get a high B, or even that it's a 1-2, but the 1-2 nested with this 1-2 back here. And that means that 2 would be where the A is. It's just I don't see that anymore as likely. So we'll have to see how that goes. Again, long term remains to be Ether outperforming Bitcoin. I'm having so many weird anomalies on this chart. Things just, I just lost a wave. Strange. All right, fix it later. There was a request for Venn, which I think someone said. So XGlider said they changed the symbol, but I still get the data as VEN. That's the only thing that works. I just want to remind on this chart, there's some data missing. It started down here. So I'm dealing with some choppy data, but it's still also a very messy 5 up. A lot of chop. It gives me a lot of questions about what the projection is out in the future, but I'm just going with it because it's all I have right now. Not been a favorite chart. However, what's nice is this consolidation so far is extremely flat. It has hit the 382 retrace. I had previously expected for it to hit the 50, and then we have something of a potential impulsive bounce that I'm tracking. This degree is a little high in terms of label style. This would be really only beginning of one of one. So because the rally of one of 3 would rally up to $60. So this would be one of that one. Up to $60 if that's what this is. One of the one. So there's a potential that the rallies began. However, we hadn't really broken resistance. It just looks impulsive in here. And so it may be that we do take a shot down to the $1.12 over this wave 2, which I'll circle so we can see. And then I would say we have a much stronger chance that the rally started. If we get over this high right here, that's 2 of the C for sure. And then we probably are going to break out. However, right now, we just don't know enough. It just looks strong. So potential there. Save that, get rid of it. I want to highlight, you want to look at my made post. And it looks like actions continue today. Let's see if it's changed at all. We have the potential that after, this is back to Niraj's question, there is a potential this one is a short-term trade starting. I've got gaps on the chart, unfortunately, but I looked at it on TradingView. There's a potential that with a wave 2 retrace here, that we get another third wave. So it may be that this one is actually bottomed. It's one of the most promising bottom patterns I've seen. I haven't traded made in forever. I don't have a position currently, but I may put this on my short-term list in that part of my portfolio. So it's not great skew, and that's again the contrast I mentioned earlier. Right now, the ones that are bottoming don't have the greatest skew, and that's not unnormal. Just means we can make some money on them short term and then rotate out of them. If you're a short term trader, if you're not great at that, you might just avoid that. So that's really the answer to the question that you had, Niraj, is that you don't have right now a really strong mix of skew and good setups. You are getting good at setups in coins with worse skew, but some of the bad skews are like 100% return, so why not take them? And then like this one, if you can enter at 40 cents to 35 cents, this one can rally up to $1.52, provided that 29 cents doesn't break. So it's a great risk to reward. So you risk 10 cents and you potentially get, was that roughly $1.10? So that's 10x risk to reward. That's what you want. And so if you can get an entry down here, you can also start to scale in as this drops if you don't want to try to catch the bottom. And then natural stop out would be 30 cents, because if we break 30 cents, we're probably going all the way to this box. So that's one trade to highlight, along with ZRX and BNB. I think BTS is about to play out, and XLM, as I mentioned, is about to play out. So make your choice, short-term gain or skew. That's kind of just where we're at. Verge, the big pain in the butt. I'm still very long-term bullish on it. You look back at the other charts similarly. It's still, on a long-term, we can still have a lot of room in this chart, unfortunately. It just looks to me to be about complete. There is a possibility. I've reviewed this chart so many times, and I've changed my opinion a lot, and I apologize. However, if you just take a step back, this is a very flat correction. It's really not particularly strong correction. It just happens to be an asset that's extremely high skew. I'm still holding the bulk of my Verge that I didn't take off at this B wave top. I haven't added any along these lines because I don't see a sure bottom yet. I might have added a little bit in here, actually, now that I recall. So I may be taking some heat, but I don't have the full position that I had at the B wave top. I would be waiting personally. I said 0.018 the other day, but I see a lot of confluence right now at 0.011 to 0.014. And you know what, to be honest, like, will it B wave again after this? It's certainly possible, because we're still above long-term support, but we're getting close. So I will just buy a ton of Verge down in the 0.05. And right now I'm going to wait until I see impulse to add and just let it be in my long-term portfolio. Long-term, right now, the ideal target, if we get a full extension, is $3.13 to $13.96. So, and that's even true if we get this box here. But then what happens, right now we have a big range. What happens is we get a 1-2 setup, and then I tighten the projection once we have it, and we don't have that yet, obviously. So, again, nothing's really changed my bullish outlook. It's just nothing about it is a buy right now, in my opinion. So it's, you can add, I have the Abra app on my phone, which is kind of nice, and you can do ads in Verge as it goes. And so I've been sometimes putting like $10, $40 in there, because it's a freebie almost at that. And then, that $40 could actually mean some money. I might be able to buy my wife a nice dinner as possible. So yeah, something to think about, but it's not there yet. Let's see. I like the chart of ENGJ, and I have some sitting in my MEW wallet. Let me just check something real quick. We have a nice 5 wave up, nice strong third. We're a little bit low. We have nice confluence at the 764.0396. It's possible that we have a leading diagonal already, but it's not clear, so we'll have to watch it. If we break over 0.085, then we may be on our way. The next target is 42 cents above. If we pulled back to 03, it's 0.618. It gets higher if we already bottomed, and then we're expecting a third wave up to $13.96. So it still looks great to me. It's just not clearly bullish yet. But otherwise, I have no complaints. I'm going to hit music real quick, because we dropped this out of the portfolio. So a request for it, I'm concerned someone's still caught in it, but I did post a trade. It's really actually not terrible if we consider this a wave 1 and a high B. It's just really funky, and I just was not comfortable with it anymore, because I felt like I didn't know what it is. And I also see signs of an ending diagonal here, the way this is wedging. Sometimes diagonals wedge. Sometimes people say that wedges is a sign of diagonal. It's actually really not true. It's the best sign of a diagonal is when 4 crosses 1. which is the only time we allow it, and that's in a wave 5 A, B, A, C, or wave 1. Anyway, but this, if I call this a diagonal, let me label this real quick. You have 3 subdivided in ABC is what you'd expect, and this is probably the 4. So it's probably headed to the 618 at 0.03. And I really can't say for sure. This is just strange. So maybe this is an A, B, and a C, and we get a top at $1.59. And then, but we'll have to see how this goes. Personally, profit point is going to be 0.07 if you're in, potentially only 0.02 if it's not very strong. So if this bottoms in this zone. So actually, let me adjust this. I'm going to correct myself. It's going to be 0.019 as the first wave up, potentially with another wave down, or it could stretch to 0.05. And how it interacts with those 2 points, we'll sort of know a little bit more. It might interact right in between. We'll have to see. Again, I can't say it's squarely bearish, but I just don't like the shape of this. And so I cut it out of the portfolio, being one that I was uneasy about, but it actually really isn't completely broken. Digibytes, DGB, I have as in the 4th wave of this B already. So the evil scenario to me is in play, and it's one of the stronger ones. It's ahead like XLM. This is the wave 4, and then I have the wave 5 right now currently at about 0.059 to 0.067. Let me see if I can get a good hourly chart. I probably have gaps on this one. So right about in this zone. Oops, nope. Yeah, that's about right. So right in that zone is pretty tight. Would be what I expect. I'm basing it on a running flat, which is maybe questionable. It could be a 1-2 of 5, and then it's higher, but it's just this 3 then would be really low. So it's potential we see some extension. And then when I zoom out, I would expect this to top by 0.086 in the evil scenario. That is right. I'm just going to point to it because I got 2 fibs overlapping. So right here would be where I expect to top into this no matter what. If we have a corrective retrace from there and really hold this B wave bottom, then I may need to switch this whole thing to a 1-2. And we're extremely bullish and we're on our way. It's not my primary, but it's just like Bitcoin and anything that goes into these high Bs, we have to watch for that corrective count because we may have a sudden breakout. So to me, it's another one of those situations, like I said earlier, that it's like you don't have to worry because the upside is so high, we'll catch it. But in the meantime, you have to at least just be mindful. So hopefully that makes sense. XDN, it still has room to go. It looks like a little wave 4 up here. The fib has not been hit. And this is a wave 2, so it can go all the way down to 0.0038, but I see no reason it will right now. We have a nice ABC right with confluence into this C at 0.003 here, 0.0032. And then we would expect at least a wave 1, if it lands on this fib here, to be at least 10 cents with the potential of it going all the way to 90 cents. We'll just have to see the setup when this finally kicks off. There's a potential on this chart that we get a B wave instead, and then we get lower into this fib. So we'll have to watch that. I probably will take off some as we move up into this region just to be sure. I just like to take off profit versus just running at a bottom. So I don't know if you noticed that with my practice. I don't sell at bottoms just as a rule, especially when we're close. I wait for profit when we get into a rally and then watch for it to be corrective and then get out if it's remaining corrective. So that's just part of my process. Drives some people nuts because like, when are we just going to stop out of that? And long term, I'm just a lot more cautious about that. If I'm scalping, I stop out. I stop out quick. If you don't like that practice, then certainly you can do something else for the portfolios. But I'm telling you how I work personally in all of my holdings. I operate that way, unless it's leveraged or options or whatever. I don't stop out near bottom when I think we're have a turn. Very likely, whether it be a month or a week, it doesn't matter. Just because I want to see how things set up in that next rally before I decide what I'm going to rotate in and out of an adjustment portfolio. Okay, let's see. I think that's all the requests. Let me look real quick. Sorry, I'm looking for the post to see if I caught everything. I have lost it. There it is. Okay, so XRP, Verge, term, long-term music, Litecoin, DGB, XDN, and ENJ, Venn I covered. ADA, someone asked for, so let me cover that real quick. And I think that's it. And then I'll just take more questions, especially going back to anything I said or any more charts I can cover for another 15 minutes. ADA is, to me, an evil scenario. The problem is this may be a wave 4. However, this is interesting, actually. I haven't looked at this in a while. It's not when I'm trading short term, so I'm not paying attention. If you look at, so this could be a 1-2, and this looks like 5 waves. This could end up being a 1-2-1-2 and really run. And let me take some fibs. It's also going to be a diagonal following this channel right up into the box and be the wave, the B wave. And then this still also has a WXY bottom as a potential, although not my preference. Let's see. What we can watch for with this is, nope, sorry, wrong tool. If we start to see 5 waves we see a move up to 38 cents, but we'll start to get a clue if it starts to follow. Let me get rid of this guy. If it starts to follow the fibs this way, what I'm about to draw, if we get a 5 up of this 3 up to 20 cents, it's the first clue that this is a 1-2-1-2 playing out. And then if we get a 1-2-1-2, this will probably stretch to 51, which can still be the evil scenario technically. Otherwise, this one's probably going to follow the channel and get lower. So I'm not really sure. The way it's just behaving, it could be a 1-2-1-2. We've got a nice flat correction here. So it's either that or it tops out right where this 3 is in a ending or leading diagonal. Ending if it's the evil scenario, leading if it's bottomed and it's starting on its way. So I don't know yet. And again, it's just like everything else. If we see 5 waves into this box and remain corrective, that doesn't break this low, then we turn and break over the box. Most likely we have a larger degree bottom. So just keeping it simple. I mean, you can almost like put a bunch of limit orders, stop orders above here once we see a correction. If you're worried about missing it, it's always potential. It's a potential option. But for me personally, I'd rather just watch it and observe it in my own trading. So hopefully that makes sense. I think unless I have missed something, and highlight it, let me know if there's any requests. Oh, BTS. I'm sorry. Just saw that. All right. BTS. Shouldn't be any new to what I've been saying the last few days. Evil scenario in play. Same thing. We've got a box corrected below the box. It looks to me like we've got a diagonal now, which is a lot like ZRX when I'm short-term trading. I'm definitely not done with this one. It is potential that this is a low wave 4 and a diagonal, and then you top at the 3, particularly if it gets up into the resistance zone. So I have to be mindful. We have the C wave down at 8 cents right now. That's where it's projecting. If we could get a corrective wave underneath the box and then break out above the box, which let's refresh our fibs. I got this wandered, so it's up. It can be up to, is that true? 76 cents. Yeah, it can be up to 76 cents. That'd be really high, but it's possible and still be a B wave. Yeah, so we're getting close. So if we break out over 76 cents, especially after getting 5 waves and a corrective retrace and then pushing through, then we may have a larger degree bottom and be on our way to this $2 region. And it actually will be a little bit higher than that because we didn't go all the way down to 2, so I'll have to reproject it. But but again, this is my main view of this. it would be a WXY bottom if it does, just like everything else. There's sort of a whole group of Bitcoin and potentially Ether could fall into it, and ADA where WXY bottom is already possible, just not my preference. So we'll have to watch how it goes. But long term, not very much has changed about this one. Just like Verge, even though it's gotten hammered, it's just a high volatile asset, so we just have to manage our portfolio accordingly. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, any more requests, questions? Elaborating on an older question, I've got 10 more minutes. I can probably stay a little bit after that, and then I'm going to sign off, and I'll be on the board for a bit longer today. If any more, let me know. Otherwise, I have nothing else to cover myself. Going once, going twice. I want to give you guys enough time to type. I type super fast, so some people are slower. All right, I think I don't see any sign. I'm happy to answer questions. I'm gonna. This has been recording, so it'll get compressed. It'll take a bit, probably a couple hours. I'll get it up on the site. So if you want to review anything, and then if any questions come up, weekends or whatever, just let me know. Ask on the board if you can. If I'm not seeing your question, PM me, DM me, and then I'll put the answer on the board so everyone can see. All right. I hope you guys have a really great weekend. I've got a lot of family things going on this weekend, so I'll be on and off. I'll try to, when I'm scalping, I'll probably at least try to mention that. I am going to do a nightly report tonight, although I have very little to add from yesterday, but we'll do it anyway. And then, again, if anything comes up, let me know. Talk to you guys later. Thanks.